Scorpio, welcome back to my channel. I hope you have been well and that everything is good in your world. So this is going to be your reading for the upcoming full moon in Aquarius. This happens on the 3rd of August. So essentially we are a little bit out of sync between the solar months and the lunar cycle. So we've got full moons at the beginning of the month, which is a little bit disconcerting. But it's also in keeping with this Lionsgate portal, which is affecting the quality of time a little bit. So just, be aware of that time is becoming a little bit fluid, and that we shouldn't kind of get too fixated about those kind of things. But anyway, let's get into a reading and see what wants to come out. Yes, I mean, from an astrological point of view, this is quite a tumultuous time. There's quite a lot of rebalancing that's happening, which we are seeing reflected in the oppositions between Mercury with the 3 outer planets in Capricorn, so Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto. There's also, just after this particular full moon, there's also going to be a square between Mars and Jupiter. So these energies will affect what's going on as far as lunar energy and lunar cycles are concerned. And then on top of that, we've got the Lionsgate portal, which is a combination of solar and Sirius energy. So I have written a little blog on that on my website, which you can check out, and I've also done an I Ching divination, which brings through a special message for this particular Lionsgate portal, which is quite intense. So I'm going to link that at the end of this video. Check it out, because I've found with a lot of the other readings that the message from that particular divination is pertinent. It adds another layer. It explains certain trends, or kind of gives advice for how to sort of navigate this particular period. Oops. So a lot of people ask me why I don't take jumpers from the pack, and that's because there are only 16 geomantic figures, so the chance of a repeat happening is quite high with this particular system. So the deck that I use has got 4 of each geomantic figure in it. So we've got, the kind of 4 times 4 going on, because this is an oracle of the elements, the 4 elements. So I've kind of kept everything to multiples of 4. Anyway, I think that's quite enough shuffling. Let's see what wants to. Let's cut the cards first of all. Okay, so yeah, interesting, Scorpio. So it's fair to say that you're kind of going into this particular full moon really focused on reaping the fruits of your hard work. You're quite keen on increasing, working on your abundance, basically, because Acquisitio is all about gain. This is Jupiter in Sagittarius, so it's about expansion, it's about success, it's about if you think about the geomantic figure itself, it's actually meant to represent like the Nile Delta, with the sort of the rivers of the Nile inundation flowing into it, or an open pouch into which, kind of coins or whatever you want is pouring in. So it's about opening up to receive, basically, which is very apt, as I say, if you have a listen to that I Ching divination. Okay, so things are feeling a bit intense on the family front. This is Mars in Scorpio energy, Rubeus. Rubeus means red, so this is all about passion. Sometimes passion can run a little bit high, not always, but that's something that I think that you're used to as a sign. So, excuse me, my mouth is very dry. So don't be too, I don't think this will kind of surprise you. I think, family relations with a Scorpio always tend to have undercurrents, and I think that's what's kind of going on here. Okay, but when it looks as though things are going quite well on the relationship front. So this is one-to-one relationships, it's business partnerships, as well as one-to-one significant others. And here we've got Puella, which is the which is Venus in Libra. So this is the girl, literally, and you can see the geomantic figure looks a bit like a girl. So Puella is all about harmony in relationships. It's also about romantic success, so it could be that things kind of take a turn for the better as far as commitment is concerned, if that's something that you're looking for. And if you are already married, then it looks as though there's harmony within, you know, those kind of committed relationships. So that's a good thing. So when it comes to career, I think you've had this before. There's definitely a sense of a cycle ending or kind of closing out. And of course, these things don't happen overnight. So I do feel as though career-wise, you are kind of changing tack. Again, I think this pertains to that that solstice solar eclipse that the reading that we did back in June, which set the tone for the next 6 months. So this doesn't really surprise me. I think it's just a reminder that, you know, you are kind of changing directions, and that is a process, and not to kind of you know, worry about it too much. Things are underway, basically, and this is quite a fitting geomantic figure to have at a full moon, which is usually about release of some kind. So I'm going to pause there quickly while I do your geomantic conversions, and I'll be back shortly so that we can get into reading in more depth. Hi Scorpio, welcome back. Right, we've got all the cards in their correct position, so let's get into this reading. Now the first thing to say is that you are experiencing this particular full moon along your one of your main axes, one of your cardinal axes, namely your midheaven and your MCIC axis, as we call it. So this is really about the kind of the public versus the private. It's about career versus family, and it's also about our kind of social obligations on one hand versus our familial obligations on the other. So at a full moon there is usually a tension because the sun and the moon are on opposite sides of the horizon. So in this case the sun is in Leo here in your 10th house, and the moon is in Aquarius in your 4th house. So 4th is about home, family, belongings, as well as where we put roots down, legacies, anything that we inherit from our parents or our family line. So this can be genetic, it can be you know, in terms of heirlooms, and it can also be something like a name, you know, anything of that ilk, skills, etc. So there's some kind of completion that is happening here. That's what I feel. Something's coming to a head, and that's why I think we've got Rubeus here, which is, as I say, it's this kind of intense red burning kind of energy. Now, you know, again, I think this feeds into the Lionsgate portal, which essentially is about the combination of two suns, the sun of Sirius and our physical sun here in this particular galaxy. And so this, in a way, is very intense fire energy, which can have this kind of burning off of the dross kind of effect. But I think if anyone can handle, you know, fire in that sense, Scorpio, it's you. You know, you are the phoenix that rises from the flame. So I feel as though, you know, on this kind of level, in terms of this axis, there's a kind of reinvention or a death and rebirth experience going on. And astrologically, this is likely to be expressed through the transits that we see happening, you know, during this full moon. So the first transit is a T-square between the sun and the moon and Uranus. Now Uranus is sitting in Taurus here in your 7th house. So I feel as though because of this kind of seismic shift that's happening in your life, between sort of like where you live on one hand, family relationships, and your career or soul purpose on the other, it's causing shifts, corresponding shifts in your relationships. But as we can see here from Puella, these seem to be positive shifts. So it seems as though the relationships that are kind of feeling the most strain are family relationships. And of course, it's true to say that, you know, when it comes to triggers, family definitely are the ones that know how to push our buttons. And I feel as though that's potentially what could happen now at the full moon. The other thing to say is that this full moon energy is both the sun and the moon, the luminaries as we call them, will be making positive aspects to Chiron. Now Chiron's sitting in Aries here in your 6th house. So this is the house of health, it's the house of kind of work situations, everyday life, in terms of our routines and rituals. It's also about pets. So here I think that healing is kind of taking place, and this could be physical healing, as I say, because this is the house of health and of the body. Or it could be that you are making some changes to introduce healthy habits, when it comes to your kind of routines and rituals, whether this is nutrition, whether this is, deciding to meditate more, anything of that ilk. But definitely healing and positive shifts happening here in the 6th house. And then astrologically, there are a couple of transits that are happening before and after this full moon that will also add another layer of meaning. So the first is an opposition, a series of oppositions actually, between between Mercury in Cancer, so that is sitting here in your 9th house, and then 3 of the outer planets which are in Capricorn here in your 3rd house. So these are Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto, and these will be happening between the 30th of July and around about the 5th of August. So as I say, kind of leading up to and then kind of following this particular full moon. So oppositions are about trying to find balance between 2 polarized energies. So this is about resolving internal conflict, and it's also about making changes, where you start to feel tension, that, there's an indication that change needs to be made. Now, the 3rd and 9th house axis is about our beliefs, so it's the tension between what we know consciously or in terms of facts, what we read in the papers or kind of in books on one hand, and then there is learned wisdom or knowledge on the other. So this is the sort of dichotomy between knowledge and wisdom. And what I'm feeling here with these 2 geomantic figures, Tristia here in your 3rd house and Via in your 9th house, is that there is a shift in beliefs happening. There's a paradigm shift happening, which is fitting actually, because with Mercury in Cancer in your 9th house, Mercury is about being fluid, it's about being adaptable, and of course it's about ideas. So I do feel as though on some level you are letting go of certain beliefs or ideas or ways of communicating that may have kind of kept you in, not necessarily low vibration, I don't really like that word, but certainly kept you in a certain degree of sadness, loss, grief, ill health, that kind of thing. So it's letting go of ideas, beliefs or knowledge that no longer serves you. And let's face it, if nothing else, COVID-19 has forced a lot of us to sort of do some research, to embrace completely different paradigms, moving from this kind of, shall we say, this kind of earth-centric view to a more galactic view of the cosmos, on one hand, to embracing the idea that, certain institutions or authority figures that we thought we could trust, it turns out that we can't, that they were lying to us, or that they were misrepresenting themselves. And so, if you think about the Cancer Capricorn axis, so, going across here, Mercury and those 3 planets in Capricorn, this is really about parental ideas of parental authority. So where we kind of look to external sources to kind of give us a sense of safety or security, or to kind of give us a sense of right or wrong. And this is to do with 9th house stuff, so this is kind of ethics, morals, our philosophy, and then this is kind of about and laws as well. And then the 3rd house is about kind of the black and white of facts. Is something true, is it false, that kind of thing. So I feel as though there's a kind of a dichotomy going on here, which is calling for a shift, because Via is about movement, flux, change, journeys, that kind of thing. Now it could also be a literal journey. So 3rd and the 9th house are also about our local kind of neighborhood and short trips, and then this is about foreign, so what is overseas or at a distance from us. So it could also be about some kind of trip or journey that you are undergoing, and this could also be why we've got kind of ructions happening in your 4th house. Maybe you're kind of thinking about relocating, or there's some kind of trip sort of involved that may challenge your beliefs or cause a paradigm shift. Perhaps it's also about encounters with foreign people or people of a different culture or religion, which kind of really opens your mind, because I feel like there's an expansion going on here, a spiritual expansion happening, which is in keeping actually with the idea of the Lionsgate portal, which is about light codes streaming down from high dimensions. So again, I think that Lionsgate portal is relevant here. And then the last aspect that I think we need to mention here is a square, and that is between Mars here in Aries in your 6th house and a Jupiter here in your 3rd house. So again, I think highlighting the need for adjustments when it comes to beliefs, particularly when it comes to health, and the way that your thoughts can potentially affect your health, or the way that you express yourself can affect colleagues. So this is also about self-expression and the workplace. But it's interesting that we've got Fortuna Minor here, which is it is a positive geomantic figure. It's the Sun in Leo, and of course we're in Leo season. So I do feel as though potentially any challenges that do come up will shift you into a more positive place, either health or work-wise. So Fortuna Minor is about help or protection from outside. So it's about asking for help. And of course, Scorpios are very, very proud, so that might be quite difficult, and that might be what the struggle is that's kind of going on here, is, expression, asking for help. But, these are extraordinary times, and I think it's fair to say that none of us is kind of getting through this without, to some degree, leaning on community or our immediate sort of, neighbors, immediate family, etc. So I don't think there's any shame in kind of expressing, if you're not coping 100%. Nobody's going to sort of think less of you right now. So those are sort of the overall themes that are kind of going on. As I say, bear in mind that this is a 2-week cycle, so it won't last forever, and that everybody is sort of undergoing major kind of shifts at this time. So nothing to be ashamed of here. Now the outcome of your reading is interesting. We've got Puer, which is about either conflict or new beginnings, so this is Mars energy. Then we've got Caput Draconis, which is a new cycle, new karmic contracts, new situations wanting to come in. And it's interesting because, as I say, we've got Cauda Draconis here in your 10th house. So I kind of feel as though you're closing something out during this 2-week cycle, and that will be followed by a new cycle for you, which will start at the new moon, the next new moon, later on in August. And then the final outcome is Omissio. So Omissio is about releasing what needs to go. This is about transience. It's about sometimes it's about separation, loss, or breakups, but I kind of feel that in this context there's so much here about letting go and shifts that I think really what it's saying is, Scorpio, you are a fixed sign, so change can sometimes be difficult, even though you are the kind of master or the mistress of those death and rebirth cycles. It doesn't mean that it's easy for you to do, because you are fixed. You do like things to kind of remain the same once you get into a particular habit. So I think it's really just about releasing certain things that need to go, accepting that at the moment there's a need to be fluid, which I think is emphasized by Via here in your 9th house. So allowing what needs to be released, accepting the challenge of new beginnings, and waiting for that new cycle to start at the next new moon. So I think, quite a good reading overall, Scorpio. I hope it's resonated. Do let me know in the comments below what your experience has been. If you've enjoyed this, feel free to hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to check out my social media feeds, where I provide supplementary astro insights on the sort of the daily planetary transits, which can help to sort of provide some extra details, which might shed some light on things as they unfold. But I hope you've enjoyed this. All the best, and I'll catch you again in a couple of weeks.